And from Columbus, Ohio, I'm your host, Robb Dunewood.
And coming out of Philly is your girl, Tech Life Steph.
And out of Atlanta, this is Terrance Gaines, a.k.a. Brother Tech, a.k.a. my favorite season of the year is here, like right in between spring, when the pollen is gone, when the rain is kind of subsiding, when the cloudy days go away, but it's not so hot to where I'm sitting there baking. So as I call this post-spring season. So shout out to that. That's my favorite season. It's not too hot, but the pollen is gone.
The pollen's gone in Atlanta?
Yeah, for the most part.
Because it's not gone in Philly.
Yeah, it's not gone.
Oh my
here.
God. Like my car is light green all the time.
Yeah, that season for us is past maybe a couple weeks ago. And now if you ain't cleaned up, I have to power wash the front of my house and my porch, because that's still I can still see the pollen dust. And as far as the active stuff coming off the trees, no, we have a car that we park under a tree. And my indication of whether or not the pollen is gone as to whether or not how fast it comes back after sitting it under that tree. So I'm looking at my car parked under my tree. I don't see the pollen actively falling. So we're getting into my favorite time of the year. I guess Memorial Day is my favorite.
I will say this,
that time.
Your girl, Tech Savvy Diva, she actually put a post out today on Twitter that I had to reply back to. And, y'all can go out there and look at her Twitter account and see what she said. But she was basically talking about the pollen. So I just sent her a picture of a gas mask because I understand where she's at, because we are 3 weeks behind where you're saying you are. It makes no sense to get your car washed, because by the time you get home, you literally can write your name in pollen on the windows. It's that bad right now. So, and it's cool too. So it's just like, yeah, it's just,
Yeah, we're not quite done just yet.
But y'all, before we get to our tech stories, I want to remind everyone, because I was made aware by one of our patrons that didn't know we actually have a live stream and an after party. And they said, well, I became a patron, but I probably haven't logged into Patreon since then. So I wasn't necessarily getting updates and stuff like that from Patreon. So they said, but we didn't know. You guys don't really mention it that often on the show. So I want to make sure that I mention it on the show, that we do have a live stream and an after party. And the way that you get access to those is by becoming a patron of ours. And any one of our tiers, we have 3 tiers over on Patreon. Any one of them gets you access to our live stream and our after party that we do immediately following the show. So just head over to patreon.com/TheTechJawn. That is the Tech JAWN. So with that, let's get into our tech stories. Terrance, I know this one is yours. I think I was reading the same article you were reading right when you posted it in there, because I was going to stick this in there. But Google employees think Bard is trash. This is a problem for Google, in my opinion. But why don't you go ahead and tell us about what's going on with Google?
Well, you said it. Bard, they, in a last ditch effort, I guess, to keep up with Microsoft and OpenAI and all these other popular tech companies, Google had to make sure, let the record show that they also are working on AI. And 2 months ago, maybe a little bit longer, they launched their Bard AI, which is similar to like what we're familiar with seeing right now. But that effort to launch Bard did not come smooth for Google, as, like I said, The Verge indicates a report from Bloomberg saying that discussions with 18 current and former Google workers, as well as screenshots of internal messages. These internal discussions, one particular, noted how bad Bard would frequently give users dangerous advice, whether on topics like how to land a plane or scuba diving. Another employee said Bard is worse than useless. Please do not launch. Bloomberg says the company even overruled a risk evaluation submitted by the internal safety team, saying the system was not ready for general use. Of course, that ain't nothing but a plan for Google. So they opened up early access to the experimental bot back in March anyway. So the story goes on to talk about how Google sidelined ethical concerns. This comes after Timothy Gebru and Margaret Mitchell. They aired their grievances as it relates to exposing flaws in the AI language system. This is back in 2020 and 2021. Google was like, we ain't trying to hear that. So they kicked them right on out the door and moved forward. So I guess it looks like they are removing the cover from the, I don't want to call it botched, but the lackluster release of Bard AI. And it looks like this report just shows how Google was going to launch it anyway, whether it worked or not. So I just want to get y'all take on that.
I think that Google is in a fight for its future when it comes to this, because Microsoft and OpenAI, or Microsoft particularly, they're dumping enormous amounts of money into this. They're building chips that OpenAI is already testing. Microsoft, OpenAI, they are really going after this. And why? Because, well, Microsoft, we no one really uses their search engine, but they have one. And they're saying if we're going to change our fortune when it comes to search, if we can get down with this AI before Google does, then we need to be all in on it. And I think that the only thing you can say about Microsoft is that they are all in on this, with working with their relationship with OpenAI, as well as building hardware specifically for AI to allow these computers to do what these computers are doing. So from that standpoint, I think that Google is probably sweating. I think, Stephanie, you said last week one of the reasons why, Sundar Pichai is saying, well, you need to slow this stuff down. The government needs to get involved in it, which we never hear a company say the government gets involved unless, Stephanie, and you said they're behind. So this is problematic for Google, because we have seen search engines swap places. Google kind of grabbed it and has held on to it. But we're all old enough to remember Yahoo. Yahoo was the thing back in the day until Google was just consistently better and people moved over to Google. And it really hasn't relinquished its toehold on search. But I think that search is going to change. And because of that, Microsoft, OpenAI, they are coming after Google.
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, we just have to reiterate Timnit was right. Shout out to Timnit Gabriel, who blew this whistle a long time ago, and y'all silenced a Black woman for telling the truth, and now the chickens are coming home to roost for y'all. So we gotta, just more formally make that, announcement and acknowledgement. And then two, first, number one, I just don't understand how Google can be so bad at something that they should be better than everybody else at by now. But that's neither here nor there. The thing that really concerned me was, to your point, Terrance, about the fact that they've sort of eschewed all ethics concerns at this point, using semantics to get around the fact that their shit don't work right by calling it an experiment. They do allegedly still have some standards at the company. I'm reading from the Bloomberg article you cited. It said in some safety measures like child safety, engineers still need to clear the 100% threshold. So everything needs to work in order for them to roll a product out when it comes to child safety. And how this doesn't actually apply is way beyond my level of comprehension, because if you're giving out incorrect information about things like landing planes and diving, and I'm sure that extrapolates to things like a kid would search for and get incorrect information about, potentially lethal incorrect information, how do you still justify rolling this thing out if it does not pass at least that minimum safety threshold for child safety? So that was kind of the sort of glaring thing that jumped out to me. I mean, companies, cut corners all the time, but if you're saying you have a commitment to child safety, Bard is definitely not getting it. And so that should be concerning to everybody. Although I will say, on the other hand, I actually used Bard probably about a week and a half ago, because ChatGPT was overwhelmed again, kind of as usual. If you're not paying, it's kind of hard to you use ChatGPT for free these days. So I did use Bard to come up with an outline for an ebook. And I thought it did a pretty good job. I mean, I'm still using it, so I thought it did a pretty good job with that. I mean, I'm not asking it for information that could potentially kill me. But yeah, Google needs to tighten up.
Well, I'm curious as to why this isn't working so well for them when you mentioned, Rob, Google has search, hands down. Nobody's competing for search right now. And they've got all of our data, years and years and years of us clicking, okay, we agree, just to get to these websites, just to use Google services like email. That record is shown. They can peek into our email. We've got Google Docs and Google Drive, and I'm pretty sure they can peek in the type of data we're storing. Maybe don't know, can't read per line what's going on, but they know they have enough information, and they definitely have enough money. I mean, they've got Microsoft money. It's just, I'm just curious as to why this is kind of
why they're not better at this.
Yeah, right.
That's what I was like. Why aren't they better at this?
I honestly think that Google believed that November 30th and December 1st were going to be basically the same kind of day, just cold and dark outside. They did not realize when OpenAI was going to release Chat GPT that it was going to just change everything. And really that is what it's done. It is arguably one of the most searched for terms right now. Not everybody, many people are looking into it, trying to figure out how to use it, what it can do. Just look, it's just cool. It's like a new toy.
How to make money off of it. How to create
people
courses.
are getting paid.
Making courses already. It's like,
people
y'all
paid on the courses.
Chat GPT has been out for a couple months now. You a guru. All of a sudden.
I'm gonna show you how to write the best prompts.
Oh my god!
Ever.
Oh, it's getting on my nerves already. I hate it.
But that's happening, and I just don't think that Google saw that coming. I thought they, this is just so the listeners understand. I don't have any inside knowledge. This is just me thinking about how could a company with the resources of Google be as far behind as it appears they might be than OpenAI is on this. And I really think that, they have been working on it. They've been doing the things that they've been doing as OpenAI was. They knew what was going on over there. They didn't know that the last release that OpenAI came out with back in November was going to be what it was. They didn't know that the world was going to take notice like they did. And now they're trying to pay catch up. And one of the things that we said when we initially started talking about this story, or talking about, just these AI bots, was that Google is not afforded the opportunity to be wrong. At least that's what we thought. So they've got to be extra careful. But according to, this stuff that we're reading right now, we're going to be extra careful with all the other stuff. But on this stuff, we're going to go full gung ho with it because we need to catch up. That's what it sounds like to me when I read between the lines. So I don't know. Did they just get caught flat footed? It's hard for me to believe that a company with that kind of resources wasn't thinking about this stuff. But
and they had a whole moonshot program and they've been doing all these crazy, it would only make sense that they would have been thinking about this in a significant way and been ready to kind of hit the ground running when I would have thought they would have tried to be first. I don't know.
Really? Yeah.
I don't know what happened. And it's just somebody dropped the ball. And Alphabet as a company just really rested on their laurels or something and just got comfortable and complacent. And it's just a huge loss for them.
So I think that Google, as we said, it is all hands on board. They're doing whatever they can do to get out in front of OpenAI and their partnership with Microsoft and saying we cannot lose to that. We have to be better. So I think that they are now putting every kind of resource that they can into it. They may be doing some stuff that is dangerous. It's funny that we're talking about this AI. I just watched a new show on Peacock called, I believe it's called Mrs. Johnson or Mrs. Let me tell you the name of the show specifically. But this show is essentially about it is essentially a show about an artificial intelligence that is, for lack of a better word, pretty much taking over the entire world.
Is it a nun that's like the main character? I saw that preview when I was watching Bel Air
It is
over the weekend, and I didn't watch it, but I saw the preview for that.
It's weird, but it's actually interesting. I'm going to go back. There's 4 episodes out right now. But the thing is that this AI, and one of the things, and I don't want to give it away for too many people, but just think about what we're talking about. This AI has access to all of the information in history that has been written.
Right. Mrs.
And then
Davis,
can make decisions based off of that.
Saray said Mrs. Davis.
Mrs. Davis. I'm sorry. I said the wrong name. Mrs. Davis. It is really interesting because it's like, you know, like I said, I'm not going to give it away. It's a brand new show. Go check it out if you want to look at it. But basically, this nun is essentially fighting against an AI that controls Earth, for a lack of a better word, to where, you know, it knows everything. It knows what people want. It gives people what they want. And because of that, it can get whatever it wants based off of manipulating people.
Right.
And
that sounds about right.
And it's like,
that sounds
better be careful
legit.
about that genie in the box. So I've always said the cautionary tale has always been Terminator 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, soon to be 7. But now
sounds pretty legit.
Got this new joint on Peacock that you might need to worry about as well.
Yeah.
So here's another story here, that is about big software companies. This one is Facebook. And how did you write this? Get your money or get your Facebook money?
I mean, we don't even need to belabor it. We don't need to spend a whole lot of time on this. Because I don't really know how much money anybody is going to end up with when this is all said and done. But as a result of the Cambridge Analytica settlement, Facebook got fined like $725 million, somewhere around a little bit close to $750 million. And if you are a Facebook user in the United States, let me qualify that you are entitled to some cash, because of the fact that your user info was compromised and your privacy was compromised. If you had an account between May 2007 and December 2020, somewhere in there. But there's a website at Facebook. You probably saw a notification on Facebook if you still use Facebook at all. I know I got a notification from them directly about signing up for the class action settlement and stuff like that. So Wayne said the Facebook money's like $5. It probably will be. I mean, because they do this calculation based on the number of people who had Facebook accounts during the time frame in question, how long you were on Facebook, and so if you were only on Facebook from 2018 to 2020, you get less money than somebody that was on the whole time. And then they got it divided by 725 million. And there's 3 billion people on Facebook. So you probably aren't going to get that much money, if any. But listen, if you want to give Facebook even more of your personal information, I say sign up to get this. I thought about it because I started to do it. I looked at my notifications. I was like, okay, I started typing, and then it got down to payment information because you had to put in whether you wanted it through like Venmo or PayPal or, to your bank account. And I was like, I ain't giving Facebook that much information about me.
$1.87.
Right. I was like, you know what? I was like, never mind. We're good. They already got too much of my personal info as it is.
I assume this is a third party that is requesting the information. I'm hoping this is not Facebook's underhanded back way to get more information, because I actually went through the process, and when I saw the payment thing, I was like, what? They want me to pay them to give me some money? I was like, oh, no, wait a minute. They're asking for my money for my account information.
Right.
So I actually went through because I've been on Facebook since 2004.
Now, did you go through on Facebook, or did you go to Facebook privacy user? Because there's a website, Facebook user privacy settlement.com.
Well, they tell you to start that way. And then in those instructions on the website, they tell you in order to get certain things like your profile, whatever, you got to go into Facebook and go into the settings thing. But as far as entering my checking information, no, I did that via the website. I didn't go into Facebook and enter that information. So I went through the process because I've been on Facebook since 2004, and I think I saw your TikTok where you put it out, and I was like, oh, well, I've been in Facebook that long. I can use the extra $5 or $10, $20. That'll go into my Apple Cash savings account.
Right.
Hold up. So one of our patrons, Wayne, he's saying that he actually went through the last class action lawsuit and got like $400.
Okay,
that makes it worth it.
All right.
If it, like
I won't believe
I was literally thinking it was like.
I won't believe it until the money's in my bank account. So,
I mean, I may be willing to part with some PayPal information,
and that's
potentially.
What I did.
Yeah. We may do that.
Yeah.
No.
Information.
Let's talk about how we can do this. Sign yourself up another PayPal account just for this. You can create multiple PayPal accounts. Have that money come into PayPal. Once it's in that, let's call it a burner PayPal account for lack of a better word. Once the money hits that, once the money hits that account, then you move it over to your other PayPal account that you actually have connected up to your bank account information.
And I will say, I just want to give some dates. So if you want to opt out of the settlement claim, you have until July 26th. If you want to object to the settlement claim, you have until July 26th. You have until August 25th to make a claim. So to join this class action lawsuit and make your claim to get your money, you have until August 25th. And the final approval hearing will be on September 7th. So don't expect any at least until until after September 7th, I'm sure. But you have until August 25th, 2023 to make your claim to get some money, get your Facebook money.
Do either of y'all know what happens to these class action lawsuits, pools of money, when people don't actually claim it? Because my gut would tell me is that most people aren't going to actually go and sign up for this. What happens to those funds after the fact? I don't know.
No. I think what happens is the money just gets divided by how many people sign up. So if only 10 people, by some miracle, only 10 people signed up, the money would get divided by 10. Like after all the lawyers and attorneys get their money, whatever's left gets divided by however many people sign up.
Oh,
yeah. So maybe we don't need to broadcast. Look, don't sign up, and then I'm going to sign up. It's like,
Wade out here dropping knowledge. He is a wonderful person because he could be costing himself some change. So
yeah.
So yeah, like I said, if PayPal is an option, sign up a burner PayPal account, let the money hit that account, then move it over to your account that you have connected to your bank account, and kind of go from there.
Get your money, y'all.
Yeah. So, y'all, this is one that I saw. I think this might actually came out today, or a week from today. I can't remember when I saw this, but the Supreme Court of the United States will decide if public officials blocking users on social media is an affront to free speech rights. And I started thinking about this. So we're talking about a public official, someone who works in the government, in the federal government, or in the state and local government for that matter. And they have an official account, whether it be Twitter, PayPal, TikTok, whatever the case. And my gut would tell me, depending on, who you are and what you stand for, there's other folks who don't like you, and they're going to let you know about it often and with veracity on social media. Here's the question. Can you block them? Now, up until now, people have been blocking, and that's why this is now sitting at the Supreme Court. But it's an interesting question to me, because is this, I want to get your guys' take on this. None of us are lawyers, but we all have thoughts on this. Is a public official able to block someone who is, basically being a nuisance if they're not breaking the rules of the platform? They're just putting forth their speech that the person who runs the account doesn't like.
Well, so you got to make the delineation. Is this the officials, the person, their account, or is it a government account? Like, maybe, I don't know, for example, but, Stephen A. Smith, is that his account, or does ESPN own Stephen A. Smith at Twitter, at Facebook? If it's Stephen A. Smith's account, for instance, in this case, if it's a government official and if I'm a government official and I'm at Brother Tech, and I just happen to work for the city of Atlanta, and somebody's talking sideways at me and I block them, I should have every right to block them as a person. Now, if it's Brother Tech, at the Tech Jawn, and Tech Jawn owns the account and I'm just the one tweeting from it, and somebody's talking at me sideways and that goes against Tech Jawn's rules or whatever, then yeah, I should have to abide by those rules. But if it's just, in my opinion, if I'm just a government official, but it's my account and I created it and I manage it and I own it.
It doesn't sound like that. In any of these instances that were in this article, these don't sound like personal accounts.
Okay.
These sound like the public accounts of public officials. And in that instance, then you should not be able to block people because those accounts don't necessarily belong to you. You might have been the one to set it up, but you set it up under the auspice of representing whatever particular entity you represent. And you don't necessarily own the role. You don't own the representative role. You don't own the school board, president of you don't own that title, president of the school board. The school board owns that. So like if you're doing this in an effort to relay information to the public for public communications purposes
as a government official,
you got to take that. I will say, however, though, one of the cases in here, the California case, the Poway case, it said that couple that sued had sent hundreds of messages to this particular public official's account. Now there needs to be some kind of rules around how you get to engage. You don't get to just spam people's accounts, and you don't get to be harassing and defamatory and things like that. But you should not just be able to block people unilaterally.
Especially if they just talk from a different viewpoint or
just because they disagree. Right.
Now, if they threatening you and they, spewing racist and hate filled and threatening stuff, like you mentioned, if they trying to,
and that would be violating terms of the platform anyway.
Exactly.
So you could get them, block them based on the terms of the platform, but otherwise you gotta just take that heat.
Yeah, that's true.
So I've often wondered about this, and I'll bring this up. Is there the opportunity for it to kind of be a personal account and an official account? Because I know that there are some times when you go to a place and because you are who you are, you continue to use your account, but you're now using it for official business. Would that then fall under, if you're using your personal account for official business?
I talk about this all the time until death do you tweet. That's why you need to separate it, because because of this very thing. You have to now, even like I'll use myself as an example. Tech Life Steph has been a brand since 2012 and verified on platforms and all the rest of that. However, when I started working for QVC as the rep for HP, I had a separate Facebook page just for that. And it was literally called Stephanie Humphrey HP for QVC or something kludgy like that. But it needed to be separate, and that needed to be the place. And I was very deliberate and intentional about directing anybody that cared to follow me for that purpose of seeing my HP stuff or for me on QVC, go to that page. This Tech Life Steph life, this is me all day. This is what I do. But if you need to see anything over there, I really was very, I tried to make sure I didn't post any QVC information on my Tech Life Steph page. Like everything was that. And because QVC technically owned that page and they owned all that content that I posted and everything else. So you gotta keep that stuff separate, man. You gotta keep it
like
separate.
I said, not a lawyer, but as I thought about this, wait a minute. This is your government. This is a government account. This is not your personal account. It's a government account. I don't like what you're saying, so I blocked you. I don't know that's legal. So it'll be interesting to see how this comes out. But I think I kind of know how this is going to, how this is going to roll. But we'll wait until the verdict actually comes down, the decision comes down and see where it goes.
Because there were some federal judges that ruled in favor of some of the public officials in some of these cases, which I thought was crazy. So yeah, Supreme Court's going to need to step in and actually do their job on this one.
Yeah, I am very, very pro First Amendment. I'm very, very free speech person. Usually when I'm talking about it, I will say things like freedom of speech does not come without freedom from
Mhm.
consequences from said speech. But I do believe that if the government is saying, I don't like what you're saying, so I'm going to block you, that becomes problematic because
Absolutely.
that is someone's right to be able to tell you. And like I said, if they're breaking the rules of the platform, that's one thing. If they're breaking the rules of decorum for how the account has been set up, that's one thing. But if it's just somebody is annoying you because I really don't like you, that was a bad decision, I really don't like you, I can't stand, those kind of things,
Mhm.
I don't know that you should be able to block that.
You got to take that heat. That's what you
Right.
signed up for.
Right. So, y'all, here's one that I stuck in here as well, where it is WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, and other messaging apps are opposing surveillance. They believe that the online safety bill, this is something that is happening over, in Europe, but they believe that this online safety bill will actually make surveillance just a regular thing inside of these messaging systems. So a problem that they have is that if you break end-to-end encryption for anyone, you've broken it for everyone. And
True.
what the government is saying is that, well, there's ways to get around it. I wouldn't call myself a security expert, but I know an awful lot about it. And I would just say this: if you have end-to-end encryption and someone else has the ability to get into that, then you don't have end-to-end encryption. I don't think
Exactly.
I'm saying anything, beyond the pale by saying that. So I see what their concerns are. And some of these companies are saying, if this is what's going to happen, like Proton, when we think of Proton, we normally think of like their email. It is
Mhm.
interesting that the online safety bill doesn't apply to email. So you can actually have end-to-end encryption inside of email. They're not going after that because I have my reason
Which
for
is
wondering
which
why
is
that is.
weird.
It's interesting, but
Yeah.
we're going to leave that. We'll let that stay. But for email, it doesn't work. But Proton, they're doing some other stuff. They've got secure vaults. They've got these other things. They also use high levels of encryption in, and they're saying, well, we cannot. We can't. We're not going to break that to the point to where we will leave the country before we will actually succumb to these laws. And there are other companies that are saying the same thing. It's like, we can't make it. We can't make an application just for your territory and then make another application that works a different way for everybody else, because ultimately anyone who converses with you are now subject to less security than what we have promised them. So this one is going to be really interesting to see how this thing plays out. I was reading this article over on the BBC and a couple other places, and it looks like they're going to go to a fight on this because the government wants it one way, but I'm sitting here thinking, it's like, how can you have end-to-end encryption, but someone else can actually get into that? That means you don't have end-to-end encryption.
And then on
So
top of
I want to
that,
get you guys' thought on that.
well, again, you do it for one thing, you'll end up doing it for a lot of things. According to this story in the BBC, the government official or officials are saying, and I quote, tech companies have a moral duty to ensure they are not blinding themselves and law enforcement to the unprecedented levels of child sexual abuse on their platforms. So for this story, for that quote, they are drilling down and being very, very specific on on what type of content tech companies should not blind themselves to: child sexual abuse. So that leads you to believe that the government is saying, oh, we don't want to watch everybody and anybody's text messages. We don't want to break in the encryption for just rando stuff, just specifically child sexual abuse. But you know what they say about power? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So you cannot tell me that government officials will be like, hey, we just want it just for child sexual abuse. And then, oh, but yeah, this too. And then, oh yeah, this too. And then, oh yeah, we want to add this before. Now you got a long list of things that they want to request the tech
It's
companies
like,
to break for.
I get it. However, again, as somebody who talks about this on a regular basis, the enormity of child sexual abuse material on the internet cannot be overstated. Like it's so bad, I would almost be willing to forego and give up my own end-to-end encryption if it meant that we could make even the slightest dent in the amount of CSAM that hits the internet on a daily basis. I mean, it's really, 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 really awful. I mean, just beyond, I think, our scope of imagination. I'm actually, because I'm actually writing an ebook right now about internet safety, and have just been digging into statistics recently, and the idea that there are upwards of 1 million predators online every day, all like at any given moment. Like it's that bad that I understand why the government feels like these types of drastic measures need to be taken. And in the absence of the platforms themselves doing anything about it, somebody got to do something. You know, is this the answer? Maybe, maybe not. But that ain't the answer either. You know what I mean? Leaving these children vulnerable ain't the answer either. So I don't know. Yeah.
I think, you know, just from a technical standpoint, what would have to happen here is that you're going to have this content, this ultimately can be sent over these messaging platforms, has to be scanned before it's encrypted. So I think that would, you know, say to a Telegram or to a WhatsApp, you need to fundamentally change the way your application works so that if anyone puts any content in your app before you encrypt it to sit, you know, and allow that message to go somewhere else, you need to run it through, you know, these CSAM databases to figure out if that content actually is something that we don't want to be encrypted. But
then that defeats the purpose of encryption.
And not only that, Apple tried it and we was like, nah, we don't want that. Get out of here with that. Apple tried that same things. Like we created this thing that's going to scan these pictures, and people heard what? Scan pictures? No. And Apple was like, all right, our bad. We tried.
And I understand it. So hold up. The picture of my newborn that I sent to my parents, that gets flagged potentially.
Right, in the bathtub or whatever.
Son, I'm not having that. So that's exactly. I'm glad you brought that up, Terry, because that's exactly what I was thinking. I don't know that that's going to work. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Because Stephanie, I get where you are coming from.
I know. It's like, why do people suck so bad? That's the problem.
If it wasn't for the humans, we would all be cool.
Right. Maybe we need the AI.
The humans that is messing this stuff up.
Maybe the AI will be able to step in and do something. I don't know. And maybe that's the, I don't know. Maybe that's the answer to get around the idea. I think when we think about, we don't want people looking at our messages and we want them encrypted, maybe the idea that AI scans the messages before they get sent or as a result of something, maybe that makes it sit better with people. If it's not a human being that's actually looking at your content, it's this AI tool that was trained on this CSAM data set. And I don't know. I
don't want the robots to find out how trash we are, because they're going to be like, man, people are trash.
Just kill them all.
Get rid of all.
Exactly. Get rid of them. They're horrible.
Here's some real talk on this too. We say AI can do it, but Stephanie, I would imagine that you probably have a problem with AI that is 10,000% less accurate for you than it is for white men.
Absolutely.
Because if you think about it, at some point, somebody had to say, this is 10,000%, worse for black women than it is for white men.
But we're cool with
that. Right. Let's go ahead and use it.
Yeah.
So when I start to look at those things, I have been stuck on this quote. I cannot believe what you say because I see what you do. I've been stuck on it. I've been saying it for probably the past couple of months. But it's like if we know that was okay, then what is going to be okay when it comes to how these CSAM databases are looking at black children as compared to looking at Caucasian children, looking
True.
at,
I know.
Latino children as compared to, all those things kind of come into it. So the problem that becomes that even if you try to build this into your application, although the people who are looking at this content are the most horrible people in the world, and I believe that they should be put under the jail if they get caught for doing this kind of stuff. They're not necessarily idiots in the sense that, oh, wait a minute, I'm just not going to use this app. I'll use this other app that gets around this in a way that I think I'm going to protect myself. I think when you try to chase technology with the law is always going to be a step behind, because by
Absolutely.
the time, if you could we could say, you know what, we decided this today and it's a law tomorrow, then you got until maybe next week before somebody figures it out. But the way laws really work is that, well, we're going to put this in a law. It goes into effect in April of 2024.
Right.
Well, before we even get to April of 2024,
debate it 12 times.
Exactly. By the time it actually goes into effect, we've already moved to some other technology that the law didn't exactly cover. So you still have a problem. And I think, Terrance, that goes back to your point about, the slippery slope. It's like, well, when you let this in, what are you going to let that in? When you let that in, are you going to let these things in? When you let these things in, well, you might as well let these things in. Mm-hmm. I think that I'm not sure how they're going to do this without saying it is illegal to have an encryption. And I just don't know, unless the whole earth is.
And then what's going to happen is that, these apps just won't be available for people in the UK. They're not, I don't believe they're going to cave and offer some unencrypted version just to them and not everybody else. So the UK is just going to miss out on WhatsApp basically, which is going to be crazy.
Right. So as Terrance said, we actually, or I should say Apple tried to do this. It didn't go well at all. This is, this kind of stuff wouldn't really fly over here. But what is kind of flying over here, and we need to talk about, is the Restrict Act. And Stephanie, I believe you stuck this one in here where you said that, the Restrict Act is going to be a problem, too. So I started reading through some of these things. I actually read and watched this. I read something on Reuters about this. I'm smiling as I say that, because for those who don't know, I had a hard time saying Reuters. Or Stephanie had to. Okay, Rob, I gotta edit you. You gotta say this. You gotta say this name.
I couldn't let you go out like that. I couldn't let you go out like that.
And I appreciate it, because that was funny. Many people said, "Bro, you didn't know it was called Reuters." No, clearly I didn't, because I was saying it all kind of wrong to the point where I annoyed my host. But anyway, I saw even something in Reuters about this. But so why don't you go ahead and tell us what the Restrict Act is and why this could be problematic for U.S.-based companies?
So the Restrict Act is the Restricting the Emergence of Security Threats That Risk Information and Communications Technology Act. They really tried super, super hard to make that Restrict acronym work in this context. It is proposed under Congress. I feel like it got passed, but I'm not exactly sure whether it has been passed or not. It got introduced on March 7th, but I feel like it has been passed. But the stated purpose of the act is to limit national security risks by allowing the Department of Commerce to review, block, and mitigate transactions involving foreign information and communications technology that pose undue risk. So it's going to make it easier for the U.S. government to ban or force the sale of specific software or equipment from certain countries if it's deemed to pose a spying risk. It really just is this vague blanket language. That, the countries affected obviously would be China, Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Russia, and Venezuela.
Cuba? They still bothered with Cuba, man.
Bothered with Cuba.
Still bothered with Cuba.
And still reserve the right to add other countries to this list if they are so inclined. The technology that they were talking about is any technology, internet hosting services, satellite payloads, mobile apps, as long as they are used by more than 1 million people in the United States. This was basically what was how they were going to enact the TikTok ban, because TikTok would fall under this Restrict Act. But I mean, basically any thing falls under this act, honestly. And I think that is most people's objection, is that it just is so broad, and it really gives some very small parts of the government like unilateral power. I don't think Congress has a ton of oversight over this once it gets enacted. I think it's just executive power that can make these choices and say yay or nay. So there's a lot of issues around it. I know a lot of people were concerned about the idea of VPNs, of using a virtual private network after this law if it were to go in effect. Because there's nothing in the law that says that the government can't come after individuals who violate the terms of the act. So if I was to download a VPN so I can continue using TikTok, am I now subject to, potential prosecution by the federal government for doing so? So way, way too many more questions than answers with this law. And the fact that the things that the law claims to want to try to protect against are things that every platform is doing. So can we get our arms around the ones right here in our own backyard? And then maybe if we had, real privacy protections under the law, a lot of this concern would go away.
So here's my thought on this. And why the countries that they are targeting specifically with this. And I think that on some level, they're saying, you know what? Yeah, we know that we have some companies in the United States that are doing exactly the same thing, but those are our folks. This basically messing up over people's, messing over people's security, over their data, over their privacy. When it comes to a foreign actor doing this, a company that the company may actually be the state, we ain't trying to roll with that. That is how I think that they are rationalizing this. Now, that creates still all kind of problems because, you could have companies here that are doing exactly the same thing that you're worried about and sending that data to places where we don't want the data to be sent. We saw this happen with Facebook. Facebook is a US-based company. We saw it happen with Facebook.
The reason why the class action lawsuit that we talked about topics ago was as a result of Facebook, a company in the United States, taking our data and selling it to government actions. So that this flies directly in the face of the idea that inside the country, do what you got to do. Outside the country, we got to do all this stuff. We got to do.
And you know what I think it comes down to? At some level, you can go to court with Facebook and make them have to pay $727 million. Whatever that's, I can't remember the exact number. It was over 700 million. You can do that, but how do you do that with Venezuela? Well, maybe with Venezuela, how do you do that with China? How do you go and say, TikTok was doing X, Y, and Z, and we have determined you owe us $1.3 billion. And China just says,
no, we don't.
Don't wait for that check to clear.
No, we don't. I know.
In fact, we don't owe you the money. We want our money back on all these bonds we done buy. That's the kind of stuff that I think that maybe they're thinking about here. There's really no way you can go after a sovereign country, because you don't like what an application coming out of that country is doing. So they're saying, okay, we're going to give the opportunity to just completely block that or force that company to be sold outside of, this list of countries that we don't roll with. That's the only thing that I can think here, because you're exactly right. It's like, we've seen this happen with Cambridge Analytica and Facebook.
Right.
The things that we're worried about, is the reason we're worried about it because it has happened. These are things that have actually happened. And the only thing that is different between Facebook and TikTok is that all we can do is block TikTok and say, you can't use that app here. You can't necessarily go after them in Beijing and say, you owe us this money. Now they may want to pay it if they want to continue to run here, but I don't think that is going to roll at the state actor level, which is maybe why they're saying that this is what we have to do for these countries that are not necessarily our friends.
And you put it like you said it, they're not our friends, right? Because according to this, Stephanie mentioned growing concerns with consumer software from vendors in the People's Republic of China, ByteDance's TikTok, Tencent's WeChat, and Alibaba's Alipay. Specifically, the further illuminating these concerns, the top 2 apps by absolute download in the United States were from vendors Temu and ByteDance. So it sounds like, well, the question I have is, does the United States really care about our data and really care about our privacy and are really concerned about the well-being of Americans' usage of social media and preventing and from these countries rather, from getting our data? Or is the United States and the government's like, we need a way to dig at China. Let's just do this. Just to dig at China, not necessarily concerned about, we're so concerned about all this data. They're like, how we
No, they don't. If they cared, we would have a GDPR, a version of GDPR here in the United States. If the U.S. actually cared about citizen privacy and all that kind of thing, this is their workaround to get at TikTok. I mean, it really is pretty much TikTok and Huawei at the same time. It's like, we would have a GDPR if our privacy and our data was the main concern and the main focus here.
We can't have that because that affects all companies. We're not concerned. Like I said, we're not concerned about our homegrown mess. We're concerned about the mess from outside of our borders.
Exactly.
And that's why this is. So, y'all, it has been a while. We have not done a spotlight. I think we may have done one in March, but we may have to go all the way back to Black History Month to the last time we had a spotlight. But Steph, you came up with a spotlight for this week, Mr. Leo D. Sullivan. Why don't you go ahead and tell us about Mr. Sullivan?
Yes, let's do our spotlight. Hold on one second. Let me get my page up. All righty. Leo D. Sullivan, an animator, designer, writer, and director whose trailblazing career spanned more than 60 years, died on March 25th, unfortunately, due to heart failure at age 82. Part of the latter 20th century vanguard of Black American animators, Sullivan worked on iconic series such as Fat Albert, the Scooby-Doo franchise, Beanie and Cecil, Flash Gordon, The New Adventures of Mighty Mouse, My Little Pony, and the Transformers, as well as the animated intro for Soul Train. The Soul Train! Towards the turn of the millennium, he helped bring the 90s favorites Tiny Toon Adventures and Animaniacs to the screen. Oh my God, I was in love with Animaniacs and Tiny Toon, as well as Tasmania, Sea Bear and Jamal, The Incredible Hulk, Dumb and Dumber, and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures animated series. Born in Lockhart, Texas, Sullivan moved to Los Angeles in 1952 and got an early start in the animation business, scoring a gig as a runner for Looney Tunes legend Bob Clampett, working his way up the ladder at Bob Clampett Productions to become a cell polisher, then an artist and animator. He went on to work for other top studios such as Hanna-Barbera and Warner Brothers. In 1960, Sullivan joined forces with former Disney animator and fellow icon of Black animation Floyd Norman to form Vignette Films, where the duo created films designed to educate American students about important figures in Black history. The studio partnered with LA television station KIIX-TV, creating a number of logo animations and commercials, including the first logo for Soul Train. Educating and inspiring Black children and youth was of great importance to Sullivan, who went on to found Leo Sullivan Multimedia and its namesake foundation dedicated to teaching animation and video game development to kids. Through LSM, Sullivan launched the Afro Kids brand, which carries the mission of building Black children's self-esteem and cultural awareness. The brand includes an interactive website and VOD channel. Sullivan was twice honored with an award of recognition with Norman from the Black Filmmakers Hall of Fame and won an Emmy Award as a timing director in 1992. Just last summer, Sullivan joined Norman to form the centerpiece of Nickelodeon Paramount Animation's Great Day in Animation photo, recreating the iconic 1958 Art Kane photo of jazz musicians A Great Day in Harlem, but with with Black animation professionals. Sullivan is survived by his wife, Ethelyn, who was his partner in both life and profession as part of Vignette, LSM, and AfroKids. He had a daughter, Tina Coleman, and a son, Leo D. Sullivan Jr. So rest in peace, Leo D. Sullivan.
When you put that in there, and I said this in our, when we were in the green room, where do I know that name from? Because I'm not really like into like comics and stuff like that. So it's like, where do I know that name from? Oh, Fat Albert.
Listen.
So yeah, Fat Albert. I do remember seeing his name come up in credits of Fat Albert. So rest in peace.
And then Animania. It's time for Animania.
That was an excellent Animaniacs, and then before that, Danger Mouse.
Oh my God, Danger Mouse was my shit. Danger Mouse.
So y'all, we did not have a new patron this week, but for anyone who would like to become a patron, anyone who would like to support the show, as we said at the beginning of the show, head over to patreon.com/TheTechJawn. That is The Tech JAWN, where you can basically help support the show so we can bring this tech to you the way that we bring it to you. So with that, Tech Life Steph, why don't you tell the folks how to get at you?
So I have an announcement to make. May the 4th be with all of us and you. I will be debuting the new website, but I'm going to do it in an Instagram live, AMA style. So ask me anything. I'm going to do some giveaways. I got some new stuff popping, and we got the new website launching. So I would hope you can all join me on May the 4th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Instagram Live, where you will finally see the new website. And again, I'm going to be giving some stuff away and just, chopping it up with folks in an AMA. But for now, you can follow me all around the web at Lifestyle.
All right. And you can find me all over the internets at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH.
And I am at Robb Dunewood on all the things. And we are also at The Tech Jawn, The Tech JAWN on all the things. So come and holla at us wherever you holla. Until we meet again in a week's time. Peace.
Peace.